Hey Sean,
Sean's in
Andy.
there. Welcome to Training Tuesdays, installment number 2. We are going to be talking third-party stories, aren't we, Chris?
Absolutely, today, yeah.
So who are you, though?
Who am I?
Yeah.
So welcome everybody again. Just to formally reintroduce myself. So my name's Chris Blackburn. My role here is the head of sales for ISR training. How about yourself?
Mouthful of coffee. Rob Hawkes. So I am the head of coaching. What's interesting is we've got dual screens and there's a delay on Facebook. So I'll do that, and in about 5 minutes it's gonna it'll come like that. So today we're talking third-party stories. Bearing in mind that we're from England, so I say party, not party, or party as Australians will. What are third-party stories, Chris?
So third-party stories for me would be practical ways of increasing value through the product yourself and the company, and being able to explain another person that's been through a same or similar process to get the outcome that somebody may be seeking.
Okay. Can they be used if you're not in sales, for example, if you're not in a transactional role?
Absolutely. Do you mean in regards with like booking of appointments, or how do you mean by that?
Yeah, so if we've got people on Facebook who maybe aren't in obviously we know we've got Sean at the moment, he's Marble Man. He, his guys are out there selling, surfaces and whatnot. But what if there are people there that aren't in a direct selling role? How could they? What would third-party stories mean to them?
It would be able to increase the value of the company, the organisation, and probably just sell themselves more.
Yeah.
Showing that they've worked for the business for a long time, been able to raise more value across what they offer.
Yeah, I was speaking to someone. I got a lady who, I won't say her name because she wanted to keep it anonymous. So she's actually going through a job interview process at the moment. So for her, I suggested that using third-party stories when employers or future employers are asking questions around your experience, that the third-party example was far more powerful than you talking about it yourself.
For sure.
So rather than me saying what I did and what I thought was really good it would be more so around the experiences of others to then sell the outcome. So it's like not what I'm saying, it's what they're saying.
Sure.
So if we've got any job seekers out there, which I know that we do, in inquiries we get, then perhaps that's another way of thinking.
Did you used to use that in your recruitment background as well?
Yeah, I did. I think I would ask people to not talk about themselves so much, talk about what it is that they're doing and how that will benefit the employer, and then an example of that in a real story. Yeah, thanks, Mandy. So I think just it provides a different narrative to the one that most people will do. They will, like we talk about features and benefits, and I think it's far more powerful that you have somebody else's experience. Social proof. So for those on Facebook, we got Mandy has just said, the social proofing. So basically, we have levels of social verification or people around that will you kind of validate the story. So if you're saying X, Y, and Z did this, and this is what happened, they'll be far more likely to potentially understand. But also, like there's a reason why we have all of these names on the board, is because it proves that there are businesses out there that have used it. And if you can be specific with an example, it will perhaps have a bit more power. I know you've written a couple of things down you wanted to share.
Obviously, success leaves clues, right?
It does, yeah.
Absolutely. Where would you, from a sales perspective then, because obviously as a sales training business, where would you, in your experience, use sales third-party stories? Where would you find the most relevant place for people to be able to use that?
Yeah, good question. I think, in the entirety of the conversation that I'm having with someone, probably the discovery, the part where I'm trying to find out the information the most. So I would actually use, and this is what I coach people on, is use third-party stories to build value in yourself and the company, and like I said, and the service and the product, but do it in a way that will bring relevance to a question you're about to ask.
Exactly right.
Yeah. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
yeah, absolutely. So I think what Rob's saying there, so we teach something called an elevator pitch, and that's PITCH. The T of it is actually standing for tell them the problems that you solve. So as a business, the areas that we work on are the sales process, the increasing of conversion rates, and the average transaction value. So a question I may ask in the discovery phase. So the three areas we work on are the sales process, the conversion rates, and the average transaction value. From the three areas, which one would be most important for yourself, or would it be all of the above?
So if I say all of the above?
All of the above, that just means that now I've got an ability to use the right third-party story for the outcome that the customer's looking to achieve.
Oh, okay. Would you, in that sense, if I say all of the above, would you ask another question to hammer home on which one is the most important?
Yeah, I think, again, not to get too coachy, but we'd go on a primary, secondary, tertiary level.
Good.
Primary, secondary, tertiary level questioning to really dig deep into understanding what the most important outcome of a particular service is. So Mandy, for yourself who's engaging at the moment with your water products, understanding what the main outcome of a customer, what they're looking to seek from utilizing your product, just means that you can arm yourself with the right third-party story.
Yeah. So if we relate it to somebody else, we've got in there at the moment, Sean with the Marble Man. So in asking, you said primary, secondary, tertiary level questions, going a little bit away from third party, what do you mean by that for those that don't know?
So being able to ask a primary question of a big picture question. So what do you like?
Yeah.
Then when you get the understanding of what they actually like, being able to then go a little bit deeper, being able to actually relate to the customer. So it's funny you say that you like that, you know, it's very similar to X. To get an idea, is there any particular reason why that is?
Okay, so
really get.
No, so in Sean's case, in the marble world, in tops and surfaces and granite work surfaces and whatnot, what could his team ask, and then what kind of stories could they use?
Yeah, so I guess with that you could ask for maybe for the marble, maybe the surface. So from the surface, what type of surface are you looking for on the top of your granite or your worktop or anything like that?
Yeah.
You get the answer. Okay, perfect. From the range that we offer, any particular reason you've chose that one?
Yeah.
Okay, and then you can start to then build a third-party story. It's really funny, actually. The customer that we've just done a job for 3 months ago, they picked the exact same one. And what they found through the last 3 months is easier to clean up.
Yeah,
been able to raise it.
Put you on the spot there, but you did all right. That's good. But also one thing, and as you're saying that, and maybe some people out there can agree or comment on later, is that when you say, "Oh, I had a person who," do you think that can sound a little bit salesy?
Absolutely. Yeah, you've got to be able to be very relative in the third-party story that you share. It's not the feel, felt, found, old school.
What's that for people that don't know?
So, somebody felt exactly the same way. What they found after using us was this, and this is the outcome that they received. So a feel, felt, and found.
So that's a really old school sales.
Yeah, process, like a 3-step process to explain a story.
Yeah. So if I was Sean, or in any industry for that matter, talking about an individual relevant to them is the perfect use of a third party.
Absolutely, yeah. Been able to take them through essentially the same journey of what they're actually looking to achieve from an ethical standpoint. If you know categorically you can deliver on that, then been able to use their experience for the outcome. Yeah,
okay. Someone, not today, but feel free to, same on Facebook, guys, if you want to ask any questions, it's an open forum today to be able to do that. But somebody said that they're in a compliance-based industry, and it's quite hard to use real people, because of
data protection.
Because of that sort of thing.
Verbatim.
Yeah, so I understand that perspective, but I think from an understanding point of view, you can still paint the picture of the individual, and then try to be able to build that level, but also justify why you couldn't specifically use a certain person's name, whilst we're able to have the picture of that car brand on the wall. They've asked for press releases and things not to be released for whatever reason. So there's a understanding around that social verification.
Yeah. So how would you utilize that if you couldn't disclose information for people that may be in that position?
Yeah, that's a good question. Again, I think I would build up what we would call an avatar. So the type of person it was.
Yeah.
So I can't say their name, but I had a business owner who they were of this particular type of industry, age demographic, something like that.
Yeah.
And then I would then build the picture of who they are. So the type of person they were, the type of problem they were having. So that you get a gist of who it is. Yeah. And I actually, speaking about Mercedes, I had one of the sales managers, Steve. He came in the other day and he said that sometimes when he finds it difficult to be reactive. If he comes across reactive in a third-party story, you can sound a little bit cheesy. Yeah. So we always talk about give to take, reciprocity-based questions.
As an example.
So as an example of that would be, I've got 2 kids. How many do you have?
Okay, yeah.
So from a third-party perspective, perhaps you could share a little bit around clients that you're working with. So we're working with customers such as National Storage, Mercedes, or relevant to their industry, exactly. Whatever you feel relevant. Yeah. Some of the challenges that they were facing were, what about you? So you're using a third-party story to bring out the discovery, especially if they're finding it hard to open up.
100%. But flipping on the back of that then, Rob, how would you, let's say we have got businesses out there that work with thousands of people across the country or across the world. How would they record the third-party sort of stories then? What would be a practical tip that people could take away today that they could start arming themselves with more third-party stories?
Yeah, so something practical would be to document their most recent clients. So you would have a list of people that you've serviced or provided a service to, so that you would be able to have some sort of document that you could refer back to, almost like for like a training manual, like if you've got new staff coming on that they might not be privy to the knowledge when we get new staff, like then they
help to onboard.
So Neil, how would you tackle that?
I'd probably do it in 2 phases. If people have got a pen and paper and take some notes here, I'd probably draw a line down the middle of your paper. On the left-hand side, write the word discovery. And then on the right-hand side, if I did that left and then right-hand side, write down objections or negotiation. So we've got 2 sides to it. So where I'd use a third-party story in the discovery phase, going back to tell them the problems that you solve, is probably what your products and services actually do for a client. So if it's in the instance that you help them with their health, their fitness, their mindset, whatever the problems is that you solve, been able to categorize each customer that you've helped along the way, depending on the outcome, if that's kind of making sense. Yep. So depending on what the customer is looking for, been able to have a bank of third-party stories depending on the outcome that the potential client you're speaking with are looking for. So that's how I'd say the discovery. Does that make sense?
And I suppose there would be multiple outcomes within one business.
Absolutely.
As well.
So people might want to increase their conversion. They may want to get more leads in the business, whatever it is, whatever your products and service solves. Having them categorized into each customer that you've actually helped bring that to a reality.
And I suppose, practically speaking, reviews, testimonials,
goes back to social proof.
That is huge. I don't know if there are businesses out there that are watching that don't place an emphasis on reviews, especially Google reviews. Facebook is a bit different. They have recommendations now, but I think asking people for reviews is, we do it after seminars. We do it after anything, any hit sessions we do, which is in-house training. Like just asking for it will provide a platform for someone to then leave a review. It sounds obvious, but I'll go on to Google and I'll look at, we needed someone to come in and install some fans at my wife and I's place. Some places just don't have reviews, and that third party story of someone who's taken the time to written, I would say that would help with that.
Yeah. So when you're delivering the third party story, you could say it's very similar to a customer, John. You can actually jump on Google if you like and read his review, what he basically found. And been able to
point them to the review,
put more value behind that,
or maybe not obviously point them to the review, but say that you are.
Yeah.
The lovely Lauren has said that we've got some questions. So we've got Sam Hope says personal reviews.
Hi,
question
Sam.
mark. Hi Sam. How would you use them when speaking with a prospect on the phone or in a follow-up? So the question for those who couldn't see that was, let me just read it again. Personal reviews, how would you use them when speaking with a prospect on the phone or in a follow-up? I suppose I probably need to ask a question in regards to that would be, when we say personal reviews, do we mean reviews by the individual or
reviews based on you, Sam? So the work that you do down at Success, will that be the review that you get on your personal service? Is that what you mean? Just pop a Y if that's the case.
While we're doing that, so Sam's a client advisor who works for Success Resources. They're a company that is responsible for bringing Gary Vee and Grant Cardone and Tony Robbins to all around the world. A bit of a pop there for you, Sam. So, but I think in using on the phone, I think to talk about first party experiences, like my own experience would be one, and then obviously then referencing somebody else. So Sam's just asked a testimonial from a past client based on my personal service as a salesperson.
What I'd use there, Sam, then is just using that in your PMC. So I know that you've done it, your features, your advantages and the benefits of yourself. Been able to write down the reviews that you've received and the reason why that customer's actually left the review. And when you communicate that through to a client, that's just going to elevate yourself as a professional, as the person they want to book with and the person they want to keep coming back to, if that kind of helps. So what I'd do is I'd put that into your feature, build an advantage off the back of the reason you've got the review, and then explain the benefit to the to the customer or to the client that's potentially using you for a service.
Yeah,
if that helps. Just pop a Y if that answers your question, Sam.
I guess what I was referencing before about first party stories, I know we're talking about third party. One of the reasons why it's so important to have somebody else's experience rather than your own is there's not a huge amount of credibility in my own story than somebody else's. I'm not suggesting that our stories aren't relevant.
No.
You and I for ISR, for example, have both had our lives impacted by doing the training and being in and around successful people and what we're achieving and looking to achieve. Not from a egotistical perspective, but just in general. But to say I did this and I found that isn't as powerful as somebody else, because I could just be saying that.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, it's that being reactive. Oh yeah, I went there. We always talk about, trying to build rapport. If I was to continually agree or acknowledge something that you've done, and I'm going, oh, I did that. I've been there. It's like, come on, mate. Like
every time.
Every single time you do it. Although my wife did think that when I was chatting her up all those years ago. We genuinely did have lots in common. And it did, but it, by me saying, oh, I like that same band and I like that sort of thing. So if you're able to still incorporate somebody else's opinion of you, and there are other levels of third-party stories as well. Credibility based on somebody else, so you leverage off of someone else's credibility.
How do you mean by that?
So social verification through, or third parties through, high achieving famous people, or people that we would be perceived to be successful. So for example, if we have reviews from I don't know, high profile companies, or as we have reviews, I should say as well, they hold a lot of clout because they're a trusted brand. So by proxy, I'm trustworthy because of that person. Same with, but it's also industry specific.
100%. I think if you don't go industry specific, or you go on a really household name brand, when you may not be speaking with a business that's currently at that stature, that can create distance management and be like, there's no relevance that holds to that story as well.
Yeah.
And that was the other area. So on the paper where we've got discovery on the left, where we've got I'll finish that off quickly. So the three areas that we actually solve as a business, whatever you help a company or an individual, whatever you do to help a business, having third-party stories against that. On the right-hand side, where we've got objections or negotiation over the other side, what I'd start doing is writing third-party stories based around, even though we're very consultative in our approach and we proactively bring as much objections as we can, you still get them, let's be honest, you still get them on the back end. So as we know, normally objections fall into 5 areas. You're going to get the time, the need, the money, the urgency, or the trust.
Say them again.
Time, you can type them if you want. Time, need, money, urgency, or trust. So what I'd do is I'd write third-party stories in each area of them relative to a potential client or an old customer that you're now working with that you've helped in that particular area, if that kind of makes sense. So if somebody doesn't, let's say, trust the company, you know, the product sounds great, you sound great as an individual, I just don't know if you're the right company for me to move forward with. If you're able to help bring that customer onto your company and actually work for them and get insane results, then I'd bank that as a third-party story. And if that ever came up again from a new customer 3, 4, 5 months down the track, there's a perfect third-party story to now explain the journey of what customer you've helped over the last 5 months based on where they was at.
Yeah.
Does that kind of make sense?
It does, yeah.
So they're the 2 areas I'd do is I'd build more value in third-party stories during your discovery, but then also in the objections or the negotiation you do after you've presented your products and service.
And I from a perspective, we've got about sort of eight minutes or so left, but from a perspective of long-term negotiations, those become even more powerful when you've got somebody who is taking a longer decision to think about moving forwards or something. So, and
that's okay.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, because sometimes it's not all about like a lot of people will ask us and say, well, your conversations might only last 30, 45 minutes or so. That would be right in some instances, but some with our larger programs, when we're working with the more corporate world, they can take longer. So sometimes you can be quite smart and strategic with your follow-up in regards to that. Like if for those of you who do enterprise sales or are B2B, you finding somebody on LinkedIn should be a touch point anyway. Connect with them on there, but then strategically tagging them or commenting on another customer or a testimonial video can help in relevance to the challenge that they're facing, or the you kind of think that's why they're on the fence. Would, as you say, when you've got a story that was relevant, provided you've got the content that can put out there, you can actually follow up with a piece of content that will help.
Instead of just picking up the phone.
Like, I would quite happily sit and watch a video about someone in my situation. And that's also relevant to the content that you have. And obviously the more documented your results are, the more relative that you can make it to the individual. Absolutely. And obviously the bigger your portfolio grows, the more third parties you'll have.
And as you said, you can use that for new staff coming on board in the business. We use that multiple times, when people come through. So it's powerful to have that. We will open it up, 6 minutes to go. There's a few things we'd want to run through, but we're talking like horse racing commentators as well. Any questions? Facebook, pop a question in. Any of the Academy clients in Zoom today as well, just pop a question if there is any that's relative to your business, and we're happy to answer them.
I feel the pace has been alright. So
there you go. That's my opinion.
While we're waiting for questions, stick around for the end. We've got 6 minutes. We'll do a bit of I said competition, but something fun for people if they want to get involved. If we haven't got any questions that are popping up, I've got one for you. Okay. Do you have a go-to story or third-party example that you tend to reference regularly? Like, is there one that you will always reference because it's so powerful?
I'd have to say no, because I think going back to what you've said there, it's got to be relative.
Yeah.
if I'm speaking about a business that's in storage that have a few hundred staff and I'm speaking to somebody that's just started a company, then that's not relevant.
Yeah.
So I'd have to say no. I think the more people that you help and the more people that you get to engage and work with, the more third parties you obtain. So I'd have to say no to that, to be honest.
Do you think though that if there are some startups out there, or maybe even somebody who doesn't have an abundance of clients, can they get creative in, obviously this is Swish, selling with integrity, selling honesty, we don't want to make one up, but could you leave bits out potentially?
How do you mean?
Like if there was a client that perhaps the industry wasn't relative, but the challenge that they were facing.
Oh, absolutely. I think going in your discovery, again, going back to that piece of paper that we popped down as well, is when you're asking the right question to understand what the customer's looking for, if it's one of the things that you solve as a business, then I believe you can use that very powerfully on the back of it. For sure.
Cool. Okay.
Absolutely.
Just had a question from Andrew Lowe of Uber RE. He says, I'm following up after a presentation, but I'm not getting any feedback. How can I drive a response? I guess there's two ways you can go about it. Firstly, you can go back in time and set up the follow-up. That's probably moving forwards is the best way to do it, which is to frame the end of your the conversation
booking
in terms.
a calendar, all that kind of stuff.
Booking an invite. Maybe we'll cover that in another session. But I guess to use a third-party example inside of there, you could follow up with an example of somebody in that situation. So if you've done a presentation and you're not getting feedback, you can say, like, I can tell it's been a few days since we spoke. I've actually been dealing with somebody in a similar situation. They weren't getting back to me because of X, Y, and Z.
Okay, and pre-frame it.
Yeah. Do you feel that that's what we're doing here? So, Andrew, I'm always a fan of being very direct. So using a third-party story to what we would call shadow sell, which is a whole nother thing. But basically what it means is that you can indirectly talk about the situation that you're talking about without talking about it. So by saying an individual that we've worked with, they were feeling a little bit apprehensive and they weren't particularly forthcoming with all the information because it was a big decision for them to make. What you're doing through that third party is actually kind of calling that person on how they're feeling without going, do you feel uncomfortable because you're not sure? So maybe perhaps Andrew, in your follow-up is perhaps use a third-party story about how somebody in a similar situation to you wasn't getting back to you and why that was, and asking them if that's similar to them.
I think that can be unpacked in many areas, and I think it depends on how are you following up? What's the time frame that you're following up after the presentation? Is it through a call? Is it by email? You know, I think that may be something you could take up and see.
I think Andrew, I mean, you're still in the academy, so you've obviously got the opportunity to have a jump into some of the back catalogue content. I'm happy to drop you a message about that, but hopefully that I guess keeping it relative to the third party story. I guess to just summarize, it's important that you can use somebody else's story to help kind of validate their feelings or challenge their line of thinking. And he said great response.
Awesome.
Appreciate that, mate.
So to kind of wrap it up as well before you get into the exciting
the exciting bit.
To wrap things up, 30 seconds, what's the importance of a third party story?
Social verification, social proof that there have been other people in your situation who've gone through the same thing. They're real. They are people just like you that have gone through that thing, and it also shows that you've got a group of individuals that have gone through the same thing.
Awesome.
Yeah, you? What would you summarize, Chris?
I believe it just builds more credibility in the product yourself and the company. That's where I try and make sure that every word that leaves my mouth increases the value across the three verticals that any person purchases any product on. But very similar to you, it just knows that somebody's been through that process before and come out the right end of it.
Yeah, awesome. Perhaps we'll do maybe next week or the week after, we'll do the 300% rule.
After consistency and
so consistency is our next one. Let's keep consistent. And then likability. So two core part of what we call the Swish tools of selling, or we used to call them the ethical influencing system, but basically it's the core part. So consistency, and likability are what's coming up, and then perhaps we'll if there are any other topics that people want to cover,
Yeah,
just chuck them out. So yeah, the little kind of Brucey bonus that only people in the UK will probably know what that means, is if you would like a copy of our action book, is a 168-page sales manual,
Bible,
sales Bible, if you want to call it that. We're all about give, not take, so we'd love to be able to offer that to the first sort of 4 or 5 people to pop a message either on Facebook Messenger if you're still on Facebook, or if you're watching this later down the track, but between now and our next one, then just email admin@isrtraining.com.au and just say action book, and if you're within those first 5 people, we'll actually give you a copy free of charge. So giving you a little gift. So really appreciate your
Thanks,
time.
guys.
Yeah, it's 5:01, so we want to respect your time. On behalf of Chris and the rest of the ISR team, have a fantastic rest of your Tuesday, and we'll see you again next week at the same time.
Enjoy the evening.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Take care.